We're going to do process mining on a large sample of log data from an EMR or EHR system to find the patterns of patient care activity. We start with a CSV file extracted from our system. This file has at a minimum a case or patient ID, an activity, and a timestamp. We can also optionally attach any other related data that we want to use in our analysis. In this example, we have data covering 1,142 gynecological patients over a 3-year period. In that period, there were 150,000 events of about 700 different types. The process mining tool Disco imports this data and analyzes the patterns of activity for the 1,100 patients and deduces the process patterns being followed. In fact, the process is much more complicated than what you're looking at here. Clinical processes are typically highly heterogeneous, and what we are looking at here are merely the top 7% of activities and the single most common paths leaving each activity to connect these activities. If we show all the activities, you can see the picture is far more complex. I will reduce the activities, and here again we see just the top 7% of activities. And now we see all the paths for those activities. Again, too complex to be useful. I will reduce it back down, and now let's see another view. This time we are animating the flow of patients through the activities. Each dot in this view is a patient as he or she moves forward from event to event. Down here you can see where we are in the period of study as time is progressing. One thing that is apparent is that patients follow many paths through the system. How many paths did they follow, and which patients follow which paths? To answer those questions, we go to the view of path variation statistics, and here we see there were actually 906 unique path variations for these 1,142 patients. Here is the most common path variant, followed by 45 patients, who are listed here. It is simply a one-time consultation. If we go down to the 16th most common path, followed by 5 patients, we see it is actually very similar for practical purposes. This points out a key aspect of process mining, how you may choose to manipulate the data to reveal or conceal differences and similarities. Going down to path variation 229, we see only one patient followed this path and had 38 activities. So to review, we can examine paths and patients in individual detail, as we've done here, and we can also view the inferred process map. Let's look now at a few statistics. There are many options here. We'll just look at a couple. This shows us a graph of case durations. The leftmost bar shows us there were 146 patients whose total span of care covered 11 days or less. On the far right, we see one patient was treated for over 3 years. Scrolling through the list, we can see individual patients and how many events they had and a histogram of their time spans. Here's another quick statistic. How many events occurred within each department for this study? We can also see how often departments were the first department for patients and how often they were the last department in which the patients had treatment. Let's drill into the data a little more to make more sense out of it. We're going to use filters. The first thing you will see is that we already have been using a couple filters. I removed all events that related to lab work. In this data sample, the lab events are too voluminous and crowd out the other events. So for my current purposes, I ignored them. I've also removed the one event that is really about billing. Again, it doesn't suit my current purpose of analysis. There are many options for filters. by time frame, path variation, performance duration, beginning and ending points of treatment, data attributes, and whether certain data attributes sequentially occurred after other data attributes. Here we will add another simple filter and limit our view to patients who had used the operating room and who had also had an MRI. Looks like there were 245 patients out of the 1100 that fit this description. So we can look at the map again, maybe bump up the filter to 10%, and take a look now at this in animation. So here we see how patients who used the operating room and had an MRI are processed through the organization. Going back to the map for a final look, we see some numbers. These represent how many patients had each activity or followed each leg of the path. The line thickness gives a quick visual clue about relative prominence. We can also see the time spent on each activity or path. This overview has just touched the surface of what is possible with process mining. You can also include diagnosis information, treatment information, administrative information, and so on, anything available from your systems. Associating process-related information with outcome and quality measures or other KPIs holds the promise of providing evidence-based views of processes and opportunities for improved value streams and patient outcomes. Thanks for watching.